Coming up in this edition of Inside Westwood, an in-depth look at the town budget with Pam Dukeman, and a conversation with Eric Arnold about Hale Reservation Centennial celebrations. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Inside Westwood. I'm your host, John Cummings, coming to you from the studio of the Westwood Media Center. Inside Westwood is designed to update the Westwood community about what's going on, what's just happened, and what's coming up. Our town meeting this year has been postponed for the first time in 30 years to Wednesday, May 30th. That's the Wednesday after Memorial Day weekend. Since we have a bit of time, we thought we would sit down with the Finance Director of Westwood, Pam Dukeman, and she's going to explain a little bit about our town budget. Pam, thank you for coming down.
Great, thanks for having me.
And this was the second time in 30 years that they had to move the date just a little bit?
Move town meeting, yes.
Right. And I got that correct, right? The Wednesday after
Wednesday,
Memorial
May
Day?
30th.
All right, excellent. And so the town budget, you go through a whole, you explain everything so that everybody has full understanding at the town meeting. And I want to thank you for coming down to give people a preview today.
Sure.
So I know you brought a slideshow with us.
Yes, and I thought we could go through a couple of the slides. We've been working on the budget since last fall.
Right.
The selectmen kind of go through a lot of financial material. We go into the Finance Commission frequently, and we go through a lot of this material. And now we're at the point where we have the budget in place that people will be asked to vote on at town meeting. People will be getting, in a couple of weeks, they'll get a book in the mail that the Finance Commission sends out to every homeowner. And we have a lot of this financial information in that book. And then we do a quick presentation at town meeting itself. But I thought we could just pick a couple of the highlights
That would be
today
fantastic.
and
Yeah.
Take a walk through.
I'll just take a step back and let you drive right along.
Okay. So we always start out with a slide that looks at all the areas that we have to provide for. There's a lot we have to do in our overall budget. A lot of people know about the operating budgets, the school budget, and the police and fire department and the school department. But we have to take care of other things too. Our capital budget, we need to make sure that we're taking care of our buildings and facilities. We need to make sure that our departments have good equipment. Police and fire, we want to make sure they have safe, efficient vehicles to do their jobs, DPW. The same with the school, we want to make sure they have what they need, computers for the kids, they all use the Chromebooks now, things like that. So we have to provide for the capital budget. We also have to make sure we have, take care of any liabilities we have, such as our pension obligations and healthcare costs, things like that. We also need to make sure that we're balancing all of that against the tax bill.
Right.
When we look now at this slide, how do we fund our budget? We'll have in place for FY19 about $98 million budget, and almost 80% of that is funded from taxes. So what we're showing in blue here on the pie chart. That's very typical for a suburban community. We really just run on our taxes. State aid is about 6% of our budget. If you saw this same chart for a large city in Massachusetts, it would be quite different. They would have a much, much higher reliance on state aid. Perhaps 40 or 50% of their budget would be coming from state aid. But for a community like Westwood, it's really, state aid's a very small percent for us, and we're really funding through our taxes. So that's a challenging model for us to try to fund services. As people know, our taxes are restricted by the Proposition 2.5 formula that really kind of dictates how much we can raise in taxes, how much we can increase or change our taxes each year. So it's hard for us to kind of do what we need to do, fund all those areas in the budget, and balance out our tax bill.
And you've done a phenomenal job not going over the 2.5% for over 10 years now.
Yes, we have not had an override in town since 2007. And I think that's really amazing considering the level of service we provide the community, particularly the schools.
Schools and the fire with the new station, police
the
new station.
The police with the new station.
Firemen.
Yes, and some of the reason we've been able to do that is because of our commercial development. So this slide here actually is looking at the commercial development. So when we look at that, we're funding 80% on taxes. That's a lot to ask our residents to pay. in their tax bills. If we can have kind of a strong commercial property presence, it helps with them paying the bill.
Which is Westwood Station.
Which for us is Westwood Station, the University Station project. The line chart there shows how much percent of our value in town is commercial value. In the early 90s, almost 25% of the value in town was commercial, which was terrific. We had a very, very steady decline of that for a number of years. We hit a low point of almost dropping down to 12% of the value being commercial. Now, University Station has helped that tremendously. That value has come online.
Revitalized Westwood.
To help us revitalize. Right now, commercial represents 15% of the value in town.
Oh, wow. And there's a different rate?
And we have a different rate. So it's called a split tax rate, where we can charge a higher rate to our commercial property. The commercial pay is about 15% of value, but with that split tax rate, they're paying 25% of the total tax bill. So
nice.
That is wonderful for our residents. So again, we're funding our services with taxes, and we're getting 25% of that bill is being paid by our commercial property. That's an annual savings of about $1,300 for the average home. So this chart here shows our actual average tax bill in town for FY18 in the green, just over $9,100. That bill would be over $10,400 if we had a single tax rate. Oh, wow. So the commercial property and having that split rate, the higher rate for commercial, does a tremendous help to us in trying to moderate what our residential tax bill is.
So even though our taxes have gone up slightly, they would have gone up tremendously had we not developed Westwood Station.
They would have gone up much more. We would not have been able to do some of the things that we've been doing without going for an overriding and increasing that bill more. So the next couple of slides look at the University Station. Because that's been such great revenue for the town, people often ask, how much have we gotten and how have we spent that money? So the University Station, this chart we're showing how much new revenue has come online each year. The project we started taxing them in FY15, and to date we've received over $5 million annually. So that's kind of stepped in. As the project was developed, a little bit more each year in new taxes, but now they're paying an increase of $5 million annually. The property already paid about $2 million in taxes before the project really started, so in total.
Before 2015?
Before 2015, just really the land down there and what was there previously. So really now from that project, over $7 million a year.
A little breathing room, so to speak.
Breathing room helps for the budget. We did, as we're showing here, the selectmen and the FinCom and others involved before the project came online, our long-range financial planning committee really tried to say and plan, what are we going to do with the money? And we wanted to make sure we reached as many areas of need as we could with that new money. We didn't want to just have it kind of flow into the budget without any thoughtful process.
Right.
So we really laid out that we would look to use that money in a number of ways. The first being if there were any increased services from that project, if we needed to increase police or fire, if there were additional students coming to the school system from the apartments down there. Right. We wanted to make sure that we kind of paid for that so that no one else in town had any less service because of the project.
And there was much less much less students.
Yes.
25 versus 50 is what they projected, or something to that effect.
And the projections were conservative, just to make sure that we would know and that we could set aside fundings. The number of students has been much less. The impact has been much less. But the first thing we wanted to do with the money was make sure we paid for anything we did need. And we have been able to increase our police and fire staffing because of the project, and that really has helped improve our service for everyone in town from those departments.
I was fortunate enough to benefit from the increased fire just 2 months ago. They did a phenomenal job.
Yes, they're a terrific department, and the additional staffing has been wonderful for them. The other thing we were looking at with the revenue, it's difficult for us every year just to fund our school and municipal budgets at the levels we would like within Prop 2.5 without going for that override. Right. So we knew we could use some of this money to help us increase those budgets to what we wanted it to provide for services without going for an override. We also knew we could use some of the money to fund debt service for capital projects. that again, without going for an override to pay for a new police station or other facilities. And then we also wanted to use some of the money to provide some tax relief to our residents, to try to control the tax bill. Did that mean the tax bill was going to go down? Unfortunately, no. But we have been able to use some of the money to keep the bill from going up what it might have been if we did not have University Station.
And that's actually all in the book that they send out, the finance.
So when the Finance
all laid
Commission
out.
sends out that book, we have all of this information, and it's worth people taking a look. We do, on the slide, kind of show you here where we have been spending the University Station money. And the biggest area has been to help the school and municipal budget. So in FY15 and 16, we were able to allocate funds to those budgets above what we would have been able to do without an override. So we've used $2.6 million of the revenue to help those budgets. And again, we would not have the budgets in place we do now without an override if we didn't have this funding. The other areas, that direct service cost area that I mentioned, we added about $215,000 to the school budget to accommodate some of the new students, and they also run a bus to go down to that area to get the students. So again, we didn't want that to be a cost that the schools had to absorb and take away from anything else they're doing. So we were able to add additional funds for that. And then we were able to add, over a couple-year period, about $1.1 million for police and fire, as we mentioned, increasing the staffing in both of those departments. Not only to service that project, but to, again, kind of improve our services throughout town.
Well, the town keeps growing.
And the town keeps growing.
30 years ago, we were 6,000. Now we're almost 16,000.
Right, right. So it's important that we make sure our services in all areas can keep up with that.
Oh, yeah.
We used some of the money, as we mentioned, for capital. So the police station in particular, we were able to issue the bond for that project, keep it within 2.5, and we're using a portion of that annual revenue from University Station to pay for the principal and interest each year in the bond. And then finally, we have each year used a bit for trying to mitigate the annual tax bill for our residents. So each year, some of that additional revenue from University Station, we have, in a sense, not built into the budget, not increased our spending to use all the money. We're taking some of the money from University Station and applying it to kind of pay for existing services, and that gives a little bit of a tax break for our residents. So what we're already kind of doing, now University Station's paying a bit more for that than our residents.
It's almost like you've used the university money, and then what's left over, you've spread it into to relieve some of the taxes.
We've spread it to relieve some of the tax bill. So we've done that each year. It's kind of called unused tax levy.
Well, I'm glad you're driving this ship.
Yeah, and we've been able to do that consistently each year. I'll just mention, I know one year at town meeting we talked about this and we said unused tax levy. Someone said, are you not taxing them? No, we're taxing University Station and taking, every penny of tax revenue that we're entitled to based on the value. But we didn't increase the spending to meet that level. So that revenue comes in and helps pay for current services and almost subsidizes our residents.
Oh, the tax bill.
And the tax bill.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
So that project has been terrific for the town, helping us keep that split tax rate, which is so important, direct revenue coming in, which has allowed us to do so many things in town, the school budget, the municipal budgets, some capital needs, and then helping with the tax bill.
I'm glad that's here.
Yes.
I'm glad you're here.
As well as having great services, right? I mean, I know
And
I like
great,
to go there,
and
the
great
restaurants.
leadership skills,
Yep.
yeah?
Yes, it was important that the selectmen and others worked hard to get that
And the
project on board.
finance director.
Yeah, it took a long time, but now it's up and running, and I think people really are seeing the benefit, both for the town, but also the services that they can get going there, the restaurants nearby, the stores.
It's nice having restaurants and stores nearby.
Super nice. And the new Del Frisco's just opened. Have you been?
We had reservations to go on Easter, and we weren't unable to go.
Okay. Been a couple of times, and it's wonderful.
Is it?
It's wonderful.
We at the Westwood Media Center are thinking about everyone going down. We're just going to have like a big staff meeting down there someday.
You'll enjoy it.
Oh, I can
You'll
hardly
enjoy
wait.
it. So
I
that's
heard they
been
have
great.
delicious deviled eggs too.
Delicious.
Deviled eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Haven't tried those yet.
Is
So
there-
then just finally looking at, what will people be voting at town meeting? So we mentioned we have $98 million revenue budget, and so we'll have a corresponding $98 million expense budget. And this slide just shows, how do we spend that money? Most of our money, almost 70%, is spent on the school and municipal annual operating budgets.
Right.
That's the piece in blue. And that, again, is very typical for a suburban community. The other areas that we mentioned that we need to take care of, the capital, the fixed cost, the pension, the health insurance, are shown there in the green, and our debt service in red, smaller pieces of our budget. But our main spending every year is for those direct services we provide to the community. And our teaching staff, our police and firefighters, our DPW employees, that's really where our money goes. It's what a community does, is provide those direct services.
It's not like we're
to the
saving
community.
any of the money. We're spending it on everyone in Westwood.
We're spending it, and we're spending it on the services that people see every day,
Right.
and that rely on every day. And then on the next look at the budget, of that operating budget, we have a chart that we show at town meeting that looks at what are the components. And this chart shows here that the school budget, shown in the blue bar, about $44 million, is our biggest area of spending. And again, very typical for a suburban community with a high quality school system.
And a
Like Westwood
tremendous
has.
amount of the people of Westwood attend those schools.
Attend those schools and come to Westwood for those schools.
Oh, yeah. There's over 1,000 at the high school.
Yes,
So, I mean, literally, I think, was it 3,000 students in the town of Westwood?
in the system.
So out of 16,000, that's a good percentage.
It's a great percentage. And they get a great education
Oh, they
there,
do a
right, as we
phenomenal
know,
job in schools.
from our children. And so that is really where we kind of spend the bulk of our money. The municipal budget is about $20 million. Again, our primary spending there is police and fire and DPW. $14 million for our fixed costs, and that's for all of our school and municipal employees, pensions, health insurance, payroll taxes, those types of things. And about $6 million on our debt service, which is relatively low for a community our size. We're well within our guidelines for kind of what we carry in our debt budget.
Which is why we get that great rating.
And we work hard to maintain a AAA bond rating. And just like on a personal level, when you go out to borrow, the better your credit rating, the better rate you're going to get for your loan. So the AAA is the top rating a community can have. Really, it's a terrific rating for a small community like Westwood to have, and it's absolutely helped us when we've gone out to borrow, particularly for some of our recent projects, the police and fire station. We've gotten terrific rates. We've been able to take out long-term loans and still have a great rate, and so that helps us fit that within the budget again without going out for overrides. So we're looking for the FY19 budget that will be presented at town meeting, about 3% increases for the school and municipal budgets. So we try to look to keep those budgets moderate, make sure they're sustainable. We don't like to kind of get ahead of ourselves and kind of have big budget increases and then have to pull back from that. If something happens, we work really hard to make sure we're sustainable, providing good services without really like fluctuations in staffing levels or things like that. Sometimes you'll see other towns kind of ride these budget waves
Right.
and lay off staff, and we like to kind of be a little bit more predictable for our departments.
Westwood's been very consistent throughout
Consistent. So I think we have a great budget for the town this year at town meeting. Again, the Board of Selectmen, the Finance and Warrant Commission have worked really hard to have a comprehensive budget that addresses all of those areas that we talked about, gives us good operating budgets, takes care of capital needs, tries to moderate the tax bill impact, pulls in all those pieces. We do have all of our information is on the town website. Again, people will be getting the book in a couple of weeks that
the years.
has.
You're expected to read the book before the town meeting, right?
It's super helpful if people take a look through. We have on
That
the
way you can
finance.
reference things instead of just,
Yes, and we have a short little summary. And we have a lot of financial material in the book, and we've tried to make it kind of little one-page looks at things. So if you wanted to look at Westwood Station and track how that money has come in and how we've used it, there's a section on that. There's a section on our tax bill and how that's changed each year and what we've tried to do to kind of mitigate that increase. So there's little one-page summaries people can look at, and then there's just a little summary in the front of that if people just read through that summary, they'd have a great idea of the material that they're going to be asked to vote on
Right.
at the May town meeting.
And So this would probably be a good time to, if I could, the FinCom doesn't work for the financial director. They're a separate body of 15 individuals that vet everything that comes to town meeting. So they vet each and every single one of the town articles. And aside from really deliberating at length, they vote in favor of or not in favor of, which they call indefinite postponement.
Yep. So they're really serving as kind of the eyes and ears for other residents. The FinCom puts a lot of time into going through all the articles at town meeting. They put a lot of time into going through our finances. When they're looking at the budget articles, they come in and meet with the department heads and meet with the town administrator and school superintendent and go through the budgets to make sure they understand. We'll give any feedback or changes they think might need to occur. So when that budget's presented to town meeting, it's been through a thorough review process, and you have other residents recommending to you whether you should approve this article or not.
They're kind of like a safeguard. They are there for the people to voice their opinions, and so that's why it's so important to get to read ahead of time, because the FinCom actually, after spending hundreds of hours, because a lot of people don't have time to read the whole book until they get there. To know that there's a group of 15 really smart people reviewing everything is kind of, it's a nice checks and balance.
And they do a terrific job of writing up summaries that will say, why they support an article or why they don't. And on the budget, that's particularly important. A certain department might look like it's having a large increase, and the FinCom's going to explain. Well, we sat down, we went through this. We think it's acceptable. If a department has new staff being added, they're going to say, we kind of talked and analyzed it, and we agree with this, or we don't. We think fellow residents, you should support this change, or
They agree
not.
it's going to be in the best interest of the town,
Right.
or not,
Or not.
regardless of what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
It's-
So it's really a terrific process. It's a long process. We've all been at it each year. We really start in the fall to get
Don't you, like
ready.
October? is
In
when you really
October, we
start it?
start really looking at early projections and revenue and expense, and starting to take a look, and then we just keep refining that as we move through the process. So there's a lot of change and review and a lot of work done and analysis, so that when we get to town meeting, we're trying to present a really balanced, well-rounded budget for our residents.
Oh, thank you. I feel fortunate as a town member that you are the director of finance, because it is a very thankless job, and I've watched you for years just do an amazing job of
Thank you.
taking everything and put it together. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a heart puzzle each year to make it all kind of fit and try to balance things
The
out.
proof is in the pudding. The town of Westwood is thriving. The real estate has been consistent, and
Yep.
it's always at the high end because of it.
Yep, it's a terrific town. People, and great quality of life. People enjoy living here, and we have great participation by our residents.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
come to town meeting. Who I know people look through material and take a look, because they'll come up to me in the grocery store and ask me questions, and I appreciate that.
And they watch all the meetings on the Westwood,
watch
not
the
all of them, but on the
meetings.
Westwood Media
They
Center.
are. You can tell they're involved and kind of following along with what's happening. And
Yeah. I've listened to meetings where they were referencing at what moment in the taped meeting that this was referenced.
yes,
So that's pretty good.
yes, it's terrific.
It's a nice, it's a nice piece. Thank you to the Westwood Media Center. You guys are doing a great job.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add in?
I think that's it. Again, people can follow up online, or when they get their book in the mail. It's worth taking a few minutes and flipping through and reading the summaries. And then hopefully we'll see everyone at town meeting on May 30th, and that's when we'll vote the budget, and that will start our budget year for July 1. Those are the budgets that we'll operate on for the fiscal year.
Well, thank you so much for coming down and giving us a quick overview of everything that will be in the book, and that you'll also do another presentation during the town meeting
We'll
as
do it
well,
at a town meeting. Yes.
which is the Wednesday after Memorial Day, the 30th of May.
Yes. Great.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. It was great.
Hale Reservation turns 100 years this year, and it was an incredible feat. We sat down with director Eric Arnold for a special edition of Into the Woods to preview all the different events that will be coming up in celebration. Eric, thank you for coming down to the studio.
It's great to be in the studio. As you say, you like Into the Woods. We're not quite in the woods, but this will work, right?
Yes.
It's great to be here.
And I love the Match Madness, the photos of the beauty of aftermath of the storm.
Yes, right. Well, it was quite an aftermath of. It was madness. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
it must have been. But it was it's so beautiful, and Hale is such a gem. And thank you for all the things that you've done with Hale to really help promote it. It's not just a section of Westwood. It's a living, breathing part of the community.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's a big part for us, is to really be a part of the community and feel like we're not just running a few programs here and there, but really open to a lot of folks, which is really important.
And kids that had never been in the woods, they're in now.
Yeah, it's great, and and like you're saying, it's not just the kids who are from our community in Westwood, but it's from all over the place. So it's kids who wouldn't otherwise have an experience. Yeah.
You guys do a phenomenal job, and the 100th birthday is coming up.
Yeah.
And how are we going to mark the 100th?
Well, we're doing a variety of different things. It is really interesting and somewhat powerful to be a part of an organization that turns 100. That doesn't happen all the time. I was thinking to myself, I don't know if there's another organization in Westwood that's 100 years old. I don't know, other than the town. But is there another business? I don't know the answer to that. But it's pretty awesome to be a part of a 100th. We're celebrating with a variety of different events. We'll have all sorts of birthday party things you'll hear about during the summer for each of the program areas. We'll have some big event in the fall that will be community based, and we'll have a really nice donor appreciation event this year in November. So we're really sort of marking it with a variety of different things that we do throughout the year. It's an exciting time, and it's fun to be a part of it.
Now we have the Ironman competition at the end of August.
No, we're not going to have that as much as we've got a few other different things that are going to happen. We've had a triathlon over the years, but we've moved on to a few other different things, and so we'll have sort of more family festivals and some interesting fun stuff like that.
Can you give us like the history background of Hale and how it's grown into these nice section of woods of West?
Yeah,
Hale?
it's a great history when you really go back to Robert Seaver Hale spending time coming from Dover originally, which is where Hale originated. Individuals would come, the kids would come through Dover and into this parcel of property that Robert Seaver Hale had, and that started in 1918. And it's evolved over time. We've changed in many ways and yet stayed the same. Really, it started as an education organization. I think that's a key thing to remember. Hale is education based, and that's really the focal point. I think in our community, we often think a lot about it as a place to go outside and be in the woods, and it's an open space, which it really is. It's a key part of our community. But education is the core to what we do. You know, even going back into the 40s, 50s, you can hear these great stories about building the ponds, establishing new trails, building cabins, partnerships that started in the 60s, opening up to the public, which didn't happen until the early 70s. Things like that really are sort of these great moments in time that have turned the organization into what it is today, which is, it's fun to go back and look at all the archives that we have. And it's kind of a rabbit hole that some of us fall into in the office every once in a while. I start opening these old photo albums and you're lost. It's fun.
That might be a nice segment into the woods.
There you
going
go.
through the history. You know?
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll get Paula McLaughlin on that one.
There you go. Right. Right.
Speaking of that, how can people become involved with Hale?
There's a lot of different ways for people to come involved. I think, most people find themselves involved just by going for a walk, getting out in the woods. If you live in Westwood, it's a great place to come and recreate and be outside.
Camping with the Scouts.
And camping with the Scouts. Our Hale Day Camp program has hundreds of kids from Westwood, Dover, the local communities that participate in that program. Our summer club, some folks will recall it as Membership Beach, but we've rebranded that a little bit to the Summer Club. Summer Club has, again, hundreds of folks from our communities that participate as families and are a part of that program. We have other volunteer opportunities where people get involved and engaged in what's going on. It's a great place to find ways to get active and to do stuff. And for us, part of this is be outside and be active. And those two things are really important to us. And so as long as people are doing that, you're actually fulfilling part of our mission, is outside and active. So
I do love the way you tied in music too.
Yeah.
I noticed a few things on the Westwood Media Center, how they have in the wooden structure. I can't remember which one it is.
The barn, in the Cucciaro barn, yeah.
That was phenomenal. Are you continuing that?
Yeah, we will continue to do music stuff. For us, it's a little bit about reaching out and giving a lot of different people different ways to get to sort of have their moment at Hale and what it is. We have yoga classes that we're doing now once a month as well. So you add sort of a music event, some yoga events, hiking clubs, other things like that. It sort of is bringing people into what we're up to in a variety of different ways.
If I was, and I am interested, how would I find out about this?
It's all on our website. HaleReservation.org is the place to go. And you can find out not only about the programs we're running, but also about all the the celebrations for this upcoming year. There's a lot of different information on there, and there's a great part about the centennial. There's a page in there that you can sort of scroll through some of the history, learn a little bit about how the organization came to be and came to be doing what we're up to today.
Is there any one big, this is the, you could wheel the cake out for this one event?
We have a couple. We actually,
Couple?
there will be, yeah.
As you should.
One of the things we felt like is, in the summer we have to have a couple birthday parties. We've got a lot of events. So, we're already sort of planning cake for about 1,000 on one camp day.
Oh, wow.
That'll be a big cake.
All the campers?
Yes, all the campers. And so we'll do some celebration in that. And then in the fall, we're going to have a big event as well. That'll be for the community. And so that'll be sort of the day where we bring in folks out.
You'll have to keep us posted so we can put it on the
Absolutely.
Inside Westwood section.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I look forward. Well, is there anything else you'd like to hit from Hale, or?
No, I think, we're thrilled to be a part of the Westwood community, celebrating 100 years. We hope folks will come out and join us in the celebration, come visit, see
going.
what's up to. There you go. See what's up to and get out into the woods, which is, a big part of this whole piece. So.
That's the best thing.
Yeah. You know what, John? I do have this for you. This is one of our 100th anniversary hats, and I thought, thank you for having doing all your work in the community. You deserve one of these caps. So I thought we would give that to you.
Thank you
too.
very much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate
Thanks.
that.
You bet.
I will wear this when I go up to one of the events.
Perfect.
Hopefully the music one.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down. Here are just a few events that are coming up in our town. The annual town election will be held on Tuesday, April 24th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you are unsure if you are registered or where you should be voting, please check with Dottie Powers, our town clerk, at the town hall. The town meeting has been postponed. The Board of Selectmen voted to delay town meeting until May 30th at the Westwood High School. Registration begins at 7 p.m. Please be sure to mark that down in your calendar. Over April vacation, the Westwood Media Center is holding their second annual Lego animation workshop from Tuesday, April 17th until Thursday, April 19th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Register through Westwood Recreational Department today on www.westwoodrec.com. Don't wait, there's only a limited amount of space.